Hi, I'm Destiny McCain, and I'm sharing my literature review entitled Aging in an Ageist Society. I will review the definition of ageism, share some background on the origins of ageism, and discuss some theories that pertain to this issue. Then I will explore the negative effects ageism has on the elderly and how it affects women in a skewed manner. I will conclude with my personal perspective on the aging and elderly. Robert Neil Butler is the individual that coined the term ageism. He defined it as the systematic stereotyping of and discrimination against people because they are old. When a person reaches a certain age, people begin to treat them in a certain way and will often perceive that the elderly individual is no longer appealing, intelligent, sexually active, and productive. Palmore conducted a study in the US and found that 84% of respondents experienced ageism, and about half of those respondents experienced it on more than one occasion. Azule found ageism in many different cultures around the world, and therefore ageism is very common. Some may wonder why this occurs. The invention of the printing press is considered to be the start of ageism. Before this invention allowed information to be duplicated and distributed easily, the elderly possessed most information. At this time, the elderly were respected, and the younger generations looked to the elderly for wisdom. Their many years of experience was beneficial and even praised. Along with the printing press, it is thought that the Industrial Revolution pushed people away from their homes. It encouraged a need for young, physically capable individuals, and therefore the elderly were considered less useful. Along with the Industrial Revolution, individuals moved away from the family unit and therefore had little experience with the older generations. Major media outlets like the movies and television rarely show older individuals and has also influenced people's perceptions. In instances when the elderly are present on mainstream media, it has been shown that they are portrayed as ugly, unhealthy, and wrinkled. Although disengagement theory is considered invalid when exploring the aging experience, due to its ageist ideals, it is a great framework for explaining the existence of ageism. It is basically the disengagement of the elderly from society and the various roles that those elderly individuals currently fill. This role exit is assumed to be beneficial, since the elderly are able to remove the stress that role engagement produces. However, we all know what they say about those that assume. It is thought that disengagement theory was created and accepted because the elderly threaten the younger generation's perceptions of themselves. Seeing the older generation was a reminder of their mortality and eventual demise. Encouraging disengagement pushed the elderly out of sight from the public, and society was rid of the reminder of days to come. Age-integrated theory is a great framework to encourage the understanding and acceptance of the elderly. This theory supports the idea that the various social structures in society should not have age barriers. These structures should be open to all age groups. This will create more interaction between the age groups. The elderly will become more visible, and society will begin to understand their experience. Although this is a positive idea for society to follow, we are not there yet. Ageism still exists and has many negative consequences. The lack of familiarity between the age groups breeds a negative perception of the elderly. Sangstop and Marshall found that a lawyer working for protective services was quoted saying, "My first love is children. Adults is way down here. Children come before adults. This perfectly illustrates why people need better understanding of aging. The elderly's invisibility can be harmful when there is no sympathy for this population. Another negative consequence is related to the self-fulfilling prophecy. When an older individual is treated as though they are less capable, they begin to believe it, and their health begins to deteriorate accordingly. Although the elderly are discriminated against across the board, women have it harder than men. Since women are traditionally socialized to accept a higher standard of beauty, they are constantly bombarded with images that say aging is bad and youth is desirable, whatever the cost. Accordingly, women often invest in beauty interventions at a higher rate than men. At the point in life when the elderly are often on a fixed income, women are made to feel as though they need to spend money on their appearance in order to be accepted. Also, there are findings that show that aging women face discrimination during the hiring process. This can be especially detrimental since women have a longer life expectancy than men and need income for a longer period of time due to their longer life. However, there were findings that stated the opposite and that older men are more likely to be discriminated against. So, more research in this area is needed. There is also proof that when elderly women discuss health issues with their doctors, the doctor is more likely to interrupt and will suggest that the health issues are just in their mind. Doctors should listen to their patients, no matter age or gender, and should take the concerns seriously. Before exploring the subject of ageism, I really never considered this concept. I, like many others, would make jokes about friends being over the hill when birthdays came around. Furthermore, the idea of the elderly being sexually active was always a disturbing thought. However, now that I am familiar with the process of aging and the fact that the elderly are no different from the rest of society, my views have changed. I consider the way I feel as far as age goes. I am 30, but I still feel like I'm a teenager. I imagine that this will not change the older I grow. I will still feel capable and wonder why society considers my contributions less useful. This is the ideal I will hold as I continue to age and interact with the aged. I will stop making wisecracks about aging and getting old and begin to discuss it in a positive and eventual avenue of life. As I have stopped and encouraged others to stop with the sharing of racist and sexist jokes, I will also do with ageist jokes. That is the one way for me to battle this detrimental occurrence and may help influence others to join in on the acceptance of aging and the elderly. Then and only then will ageism begin to diminish.